Hello Leopard Nation. This video is unusual in that it is for every leopard artist. Mrs. Billman typically makes a video for each grade level, but this one is for everybody, and it is part one of our project about Ming Dynasty China. I have a couple examples, a bowl and a picture of Ming Dynasty China. This is not real. It is real China, but it is not from the Ming Dynasty. It is just made to look like that. And you can see the Chinese version of a weeping willow, some birds flying, and a border. We are not going to create the border until the second part of the project. We're going to focus on the things we practiced in our last Zoom together. So when you get your styrofoam piece is either a plate, or if you're a fourth grader, you have a bowl. The bowls are a little harder to draw on, and because of that, the oldest students tackle that challenge. But kindergarten, first, second, and third grade received plates. I have to thank our cafeteria for our styrofoam. They were told to get rid of the styrofoam as it is not very environmentally friendly, and there's really not a great way to recycle it unless creative artists use it. And that's exactly what we're doing. So our project does two things. It helps us learn, and it helps the environment as well. So I do need to thank the cafeteria. I also need to thank some parents out there, maybe they're your parents, that donated supplies for your art kit. We had some really gracious parents that donated the Ziploc bags and the ink pens so that we could make Chinese Ming Dynasty porcelain kits for every artist at Lantern Road. And we are super lucky to have their help. I also need to make sure that I thank Miss Gale. And I know kindergarten and first grade, they're really familiar with Miss Gale. I'm sorry, first and second grade are very familiar with Mrs. Gale because she used to come and help us almost every Wednesday last school year. She is a friend of the Lantern Road Art Room, and a very long time ago, her daughters were in my class. She put every one of the 600 art kits together for us. That's a true friend of the art room. So I do have to thank her in this video too. Now I've shared my example with you, and I want to make sure I share the examples I made with the supplies you have so that you can see how we will make very similar Ming Dynasty China. Today, the first part of the project is drawing our picture. We're not going to worry about the border. That's something that comes in the second part and an entirely different video. So I'm going to get started with just that sort of basic first type of dragon that I showed everybody how to draw. And I just want to show you a few things about using ink pen on styrofoam. We practiced because I want you to be confident. Drawing on styrofoam is not something that we can erase. Even if we draw on it with pencil first, it will dent or make a line in the styrofoam that you can't erase. So I want you to be confident when you're drawing with your pen. I also want you to understand, if you have a small practice, you might be able to trace it onto your styrofoam. So you're gonna see my camera shift, and it's gonna look a little like there's an earthquake, and you're gonna hear me flip through my sketchbook to see if I have a smaller image that I could trace onto my plate if I wanted to, or you are welcome to just watch lesson 12 again and use one of those learn to draws as you work on your plate this time instead of paper. So I'm gonna flip my camera view, and I am gonna make sure that I can see, so you may see me peeking up from underneath to make sure that my plate is where it needs to be on the screen. You're gonna hear me grab my sketchbook. I wanna see if I have one I can trace onto my paper. Here's one of my, you're gonna hear me tear it out. There's one of my dragons. So if I'm super happy with, and I think that my dragon's pretty good, and I decide I want to trace this right onto my plate. I'm going to put it about in the middle, and I am going to use my ink pen twice. I'm going to use it to trace my dragon. And I can't move my paper until I'm done tracing the whole dragon. If it slips and slides, then it's going to be messed up. So you could tape it down if you wanted to. I feel like I can hold on to it. But if you think, nope, Billman, I can't hang on to it, then don't try. Use a little piece of tape. Any tape works. Doesn't have to be Scotch tape. It can be painter's tape. It could even be a little piece of electric tape. Just don't use all of Mom or Dad's electric tape book. So the way I am tracing this guy, you won't see this in pen, but you will see it dented into my plate. This way might give you a little more confidence and a little less fear and apprehension about messing up, because your whole design could be dented into your plate. So, oops, I forgot to trace his scales, which I don't really need to, but I can. So now, I know you can't see it super well, but dented, and you may not be able to see it at all. I'll see if I can get it to show up a bit. Dented into the styrofoam is this whole design, and I can tell exactly where to use my pen. I can see the spikes on his back. I can see his horns, his teeth, his tail. Go ahead and start tracing where his tail is so you can kind of see how big he is. So as I trace over all of my dented pieces of styrofoam, you will start to see your dragon or your tree or your dragon face show up on your plate. But once you have it drawn on there, that's not quite enough. We need to make sure that we are trying Chinese style when it comes to designing porcelain, which is fine china. So we do want some spaces that are dark blue, medium blue, and light blue. How did I do this? Pretty easily, artists. For my darkest blue, I use lots of lines that are very close together. For medium blue, I used a few lines that have a little more space in between. And for light blue, I used few lines with lots of space in between. I don't like to stop here. I would like to have his eyes very dark. I'm going to dent and fill those with lines very close together. But I would like for his nose to be very light blue. So I'm going to use lines that are very far apart compared to my dark lines. This is a trick called cross-hatching or line hashing. Okay? Lighter. Oops, I don't think I'm on the screen very well. Lighter. A little darker, and finally pretty dark and really dark. So if you want it to look lighter, lines are very few and far apart. If you want it to look a little darker, more lines a little closer together. Even darker, more lines even closer together. Even closer, and finally super, super close. That will give you different blue looks from light to dark, or if you remember back to the beginning of the school year, different values. So the same is true if you chose the tree or the tea house, the areas you wish to be very dark, super close together lines. Medium blue, close together but not as close. And light blue, close together but not as close as these, and definitely not as close as these. Super dark blue, very close lines inside of my blossoms. Now, do you have to stick with the Learn to Draw only? No. If you have more Chinese design to add, you can. Maybe you just want to add some more blossoms to your tree. Here's one that's fallen off. It's floating towards the ground. Maybe you decide the ones you have aren't enough and you want to add some more to your tree. Maybe you want to draw that dragon that starts with a letter S and you want to put him right here. You want to combine two of your Learn to Draw. That's also fine. Maybe you're a 3rd or 4th grader and you want to draw the Chinese tea house and one of the trees. Also fine. So my artists, this is the first part, and the second part of the project, we're going to talk about different border designs and how we can use them to finish off our plate or bowl. Now, before I end the video, I do have a sample bowl like the 4th graders will use. Because this is not flat, this is a bit trickier upon which to draw. I find it easier to hold my hand partially inside and draw like this. I also find it easier to sometimes, excuse my earthquake, sometimes I find it easier to actually place the bowl on my lap between my knees. So I'm going to turn the camera in a very funny way. I know you probably feel like Mrs. Billman's in an earthquake. I've got my ripped jeans on, as you can see, but I wanted to make sure you could see my knees. So I'm holding my bowl right here, and that way I can lean my drawing hand on my knee instead of in the air on my knee, and the bowl a little lower than my knee makes it easier for me to start drawing. I can draw my letter S for my dragon because I'm leaning my drawing hand on my knee instead of trying to draw like this with my hand leaning on nothing but the air. So if you think that's a strange position, don't knock it till you've tried it, because it may make your dragon drawing or your tree drawing or your tea house drawing come together a little bit more easily for you. And just like those that are creating plates, my 4th grade, if you are designing a bowl, you will design a border later. That's part 2 for everyone, not just kindergarten, not just 2nd or 1st, but for everyone, 3rd and 4th grade too. So I've started my dragon, and I just found it much easier to hold him in that position by my lap. It gave my hand a much more stable resting spot. And if you are constructing a Ming Dynasty bowl as a 4th grader, not only will you take care of the border later, the same as everyone else, but you create different values of blue, the same as everyone else. You need it darker, you need close lines, close together, and a lot of them. You need light blue, you need very few lines, and you need them far apart. That ends the first part of this project and the first video for this project. Part 2 will handle different border design. Good luck, leopards.